music from both the Sarge's Tale and Optor's Journey playlists. Smoke was tired. As he entered his dark quarters, he tossed a satchel containing the reports from the Hunters and the Council of Kaisa since the mutiny among the Ancient Empire's Cosmos fleet. There were sightings and reports of them from all over the cluster. Of course, most would be false contacts and sensor ghosts, but with all the unknowns at play, any one of them could be anything but false. This was causing an overwhelming increase in the placement of contracts with the Hunters, as smaller systems wanted their protection, and the most ambitious of Hunters were intent on far grander and personally elevating solutions to this new threat. It had gone as an unspoken fact that any Hunter that managed to take one of those ships intact had the precedent to invoke a claim under Hunter's rights to its complete ownership, much as Emma and Killian Skychild had with the Expedus Primus. And the amount of prestige and power, both political and martial, that would come with the command of such a vessel was seeing entire Hunter companies form with exactly this aim and goal. As Smoke poured himself a drink, he noticed that the room was still dark. Normally, the magics would have lit the various candles and lamps almost as soon as he had stepped in. And with his preternatural senses being what they are, the darkness had not hampered him thus far. So it was only as he looked to pour, an old habit, did the continued absence of light catch his attention. Not even the fireplace had lit. Before he could contemplate any further, his instincts kicked in and he reacted. Releasing his glass and using his ties to the celestial element of Temporsis to shift himself a few feet to his rear before he struck out with a series of furious strikes into the only place in the darkness where his senses did not touch. Using one of the techniques that the Analar battle masters had enslaved and modified him in ages past as a weapon, Smoke unleashed blows that could powder stone into the intruder hiding into the darkness of the shadows as he maneuvered. After delivering his salvo of attacks, Smoke landed in front of the fireplace, eyes growing wide as he realized that none of his blows had landed. There were very few in the realms that could face Smoke in combat and survive, including a not insignificant number of both the Elder races and the Divine, and this unknown trespasser had just defended successfully against one of the more potent attacks Smoke was able to unleash. As the fireplace leapt into roaring life, the sudden light made Smoke blink, and it took a moment before the man before him, wearing ancient robes, came into proper focus. Once he did, however, Smoke's confusion vanished. "Well, I'll be damned, Acolyte Rowe. You have gotten quite the bag of tricks since we last met. I see the tales of your exploits have been, if anything, properly watered down for consumption by the masses. Now will you quit being so rash and offer your old professor a drink? I got a favor to ask of you." As the glass finally reached the floor and shattered in an explosion of shards, reflecting the fireplace's light in a prismatic cloud, Smoke began to smile at an almost forgotten face, shock and surprise replaced by curiosity and wistful memories of a time before being ageless and a hero, of a time when he was just a student at Tranus, learning the arts of war and combat from this man and others like him. "Professor Jam," Smoke began. "Actually, I am known as Han now, ever since becoming one of the reconciled of Criterion." Smoke took a long moment to absorb this and the implications of it. He had heard of Han, and was also aware of the matter of Nomad's Forge and the contention regarding its ownership. However, until now he had not understood that his old professor from Tranus and Han were one and the same, which made the next realization to come to Smoke strike all the harder. Wait, Han, the same one that has gotten chosen as a hand of destiny? For wanting nothing to do with fate, politics, or grand heroics, you seem to have wandered a bit far from your professed goals, sir. The last was not added out of sarcasm or flippancy, but old habit. As Professor Lord Han of Nomad's Forge, Smoke reminded himself, was a stickler for protocol. The shattering glass and scattering ice cubes suddenly ceased in their flight and were drawn into the nearest waste bin by the various magics in the room, which also dried the spilt liquid from the floor. Han smiled widely and made to sit in front of the fire on one of the large chairs in Smoke's living room. The very same. I haven't heard my old name spoken in literal millennia. Please do keep that tidbit to yourself, Acolyte Row, if you would be so kind. As for my present situation, that's why I'm here. The smile faded as Han continued. The little dragon on my windowsill tells me you have a super heavy asset in the form of a Praetor warship, capital class. I need it dispatched to help with this incoming Cosmos vessel. Smoke had already been pouring a fresh drink for himself and one for Han, and while he didn't respond outwardly, he hesitated ever so slightly as he heard the request. Turning around, smiling, and handing Han his drink, Smoke sat opposite of him in front of the fire, taking his time to think before responding. Sorry, can't do that. That asset, beyond not being under my control or authority, is already tasked with duties of its own. Smoke stared into the fire. It's been tasked with rescue operations on a planet that's under some sort of invasion or disaster. They are facing a rogue level 5 quarantine fleet before they can even begin their planetary operations. That alone is going to take them weeks, if not months. Sorry, Han. I can't do it. Han looked at the fireplace, mirroring Smoke. Well, I don't need them for long. Just enough to serve as the hammer blow to finish things off. He reached into his robes and produced an infotome, which he tossed to Smoke. Everything is in there, including the resources I have to make sure that any time lost can be made up. Hell, I wager I can convince a fair few of the captains coming to my defense in their flotillas to tag along and help them deal with their little quarantine fleet. That way they can make the planet fall that much quicker. Smoke looked over the plans and began to smile. I'll see what I can do. Mind telling me how you knew? Oh yeah, right. The dragon. Han's smile vanished as he finished his drink and stood. Wish I could stay, but we are leaving on a recon run to establish the strength of the incoming fleet. After this whole affair is settled though, come on out to visit the forge sometime. Kennard would get a hoot out of seeing how you've turned out. He reached his hand out. Smoke took his hand and shook it as he rose himself, suddenly feeling far less tired. Not in for protect you, Professor, Smoke said as Han left. Because I got a feeling you're going to need it. Over the next few hours, dozens of similar brief meetings took place. While numerically few in the grand scheme, there were enough ageless former students of Han that held positions of power and influence amongst the militaries and governments of the realm for him to call on in his time of need. You will need to make contact prior to the arrival of this rogue Cosmos ship, it should be assumed that they will enact a communications and exclusion field disruption as soon as they arrive and engage Nomad's forge. As the translucent face of Smoke spoke, a gem on Optor's desk flashed, indicating that Onka was still waiting to speak to him. Trenos was snoring softly in his hammock over Optor's workstation, oblivious to the conversation and its implications. Understood. We already have altered course. Is there any additional information that is not covered by the provided files? I will need to brief my people as soon as possible. Optor did not allow his annoyance at this change of mission to show outwardly. Hunter in sorte. Smoke saw it regardless. I understand your displeasure at this change of plans. However, we must prioritize in these uncertain times, and successfully defending Nomad's Forge will allow several of the flotillas to accompany you on your resumed previous mission. The extra ship should allow you to bypass the quarantine fleet and make planetfall, as the automated fleet will be distracted by them. The gem flashed again, and Optor ran a few numbers as he inhaled slowly, allowing Smoke to see his assimilation of the information. After a moment, Optor replied, "For a Class 5 fleet, if I am to take you at your word, that would be roughly 9 line flotillas or 4 capital flotillas to match, entangle, and destroy such a fleet with doctrinally acceptable losses. I would hope that I would see no less than twice that number committed to my action if my delay is to be justified." Smoke's face was impassive. That being said, Hunter in sorte, Vanguard's light, out. And with that, the image faded, and Optor ordered the door to his quarters. Onka stepped in smoothly, seemingly not to be perturbed by the wait. He simply moved with that solid flow of his to the chair opposite side of Optor's workstation, sitting down and facing him. Before Optor could say anything, Onka began. "Had an interesting visitor just now. And Amadeus? He had many questions. He said he was the representative of your goddess Genevieve." Optor nodded. "Ah, Cassandra, one of Her Majesty's other representatives, came to see me as well. It would appear Her Majesty has taken an interest in us." "What did you speak of?" Onka grinned. "The very subject you have been so carefully avoiding inquiring into. My past, my people's history. If we are a threat to the realms." "Are you?" Optor's voice held an unknown undercurrent. "Me? By your gods, no. My people? That depends heavily on how things have evolved for them over the last few thousand years." Onka took a breath. "I am hesitant to make predictions, but it is likely they are going to be a problem. There will likely be a great push to seek retribution for the crimes of your world against us. The perceived ones, at least." Optor held any comment as Onka continued. "After studying your archives, I am all but certain that the NLR first you call the Four are what we know as the 4 great demons of usurpation. Furthermore, the celestial dragon firsts, in their first incarnations, appear to have been the 4 great demons of massacre. The first group murdered our gods. The second group nearly wiped my people out, or so say our histories. The fact that these beings of myth are not only real, but alive may be a bridge too far for them. So it will be a call for a war of vengeance? Your people would lose. You know that. Optor knew that such a war would cost the realms greatly. If Unka was any bit a fair yardstick to judge his people by. Unka, however, nodded slowly, accepting that if such a war did take place, the realms would likely be the victor, regardless of the cost. I have suggested possible outcomes to avoid this, courses of action, but until my people are found or present themselves to the realms, we just will not know for certain. This cosmic misalignment between star systems makes matters difficult. It seems my people and their systems are still completely out of phase with baseline. Unka shook his head and began to stand. Until that is resolved, there's nothing to be done on the matter. I just wish to make you aware of the unexpected visitor. Did I feel the ship changing course while I was waiting? Unka changed the subject to something lighter-hearted. Indeed, we have received priority reassignment. I will brief you and the rest of the command staff in 2 hours. If you would be so kind as to ensure the rest were made aware. Optor's brow was furrowed in thought as Unka nodded and headed for the door. However, do not think that you will not need to properly convey your people's history to me at some point soon. I have tried to be respectful of your privacy, but if the gods are getting directly involved in such matters, courtesies like that are no longer a luxury we can afford. Unka stopped in the doorway, nodding. I suppose not. Well, find me when you are ready. I will tell you what you wish to know. Duties first, of course. Of course, Unka. See you in 2 hours for the briefing. Make sure Lasara is there. If you'd like to contribute to the further exploration and explanation of the realms, please consider leaving a comment, a like, and sharing the video around. I read all the comments and make efforts to reply to each. Thank you for helping to grow the channel, and know I look forward to each and every one of your comments. Other methods of support can be found in the channel's description. Thank you for watching,